this computer. All right. Hey, everybody, we're going to get started. My name is Rebecca Johnson. I'm Executive Director of the Center for Architecture and Design, and I'm really glad that you are all joining us for a new element of our annual Edmund Bacon Urban Design Student Competition. I think it's a great addition that we're gathering interested students before the competition, and specifically to talk about a really important change in the competition, which is that we're asking students not to reach out to community members because there's a lot of reasons for that. That's what we're here to talk about today. But we feel like it's really important to respect the energy and time and resources that community members have. But I also think it's really important to have conversations about, as future designers who are going to be paid and sort of contracted for projects like this, what are the ways to sort of move through the engagement process in ways that really honor the time and value and expertise that community brings to any sort of project. So thank you all for spending time with us this morning. If you need to mute yourself, you guys, we've been doing this for a couple of years. We're all Zoom experts, right? So again, thank you for joining. So I just wanted to start out, and then I'll introduce my colleagues. This is an ideas competition, right? We want our teams to be as creative as possible. We want you to dream big. We're always really excited to see the ideas that people come up with. But we also want you to to navigate the nuances of competing perspectives, right? Communities are asked a lot by different entities, right? Whether they're community groups, students, government, other nonprofits, what they want in their neighborhood. And then a lot of times nothing happens. So it's this planning sort of fatigue that we'll talk a little bit about today. So that leads to a lot of frustration and sometimes harm to communities, quite frankly, where they have spent a lot of time and energy on something and then they have nothing to kind of show for it. And that doesn't feel great, right? So today we're going to talk a little bit about best practices in community engagement. We're also going to walk you through the site and ask questions. And then I'm going to go through and really highlight some of the resources that are in that competition brief. There's a lot of information there. And you guys are busy students, so I want to make sure that we're sort of pointing out some of the things, and then we'll have time for questions. All right, great. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Alexa Bossi. She is a member of the Ed Bacon Committee, and she is the founder of Hinge Collective, which is a design firm that acts as a convener, facilitator, and project manager for a wide range of projects that include community engagement. Hinge Collective is licensed to perform both architecture and landscape architecture services. They have, Alexa and her team have experience leading the design process from conception to construction, but they also have served design teams as engagement consultants. So there really is not many people better in Philadelphia to talk about community engagement. And so Alexa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. You did a great job with the introduction. I don't think I need to do anything else. Alexa Bossi. I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of engagement essentials. I know that we're a little mixed messages, but we're telling you that we don't necessarily think that this is the right project to start reaching out to folks and doing some of that community engagement. However, it's important to remember that engagement is very important in sort of development of a project, and being able to make sure that you're creating a space that is for the people that are going to be using it. As Rebecca said, I'm very fortunate in that we get to work with clients that also are very mission driven around working with their communities and creating public spaces for them. So I've had an opportunity to test out a lot of different engagement strategies. Going to be different for every neighborhood, different for every city, different for every group of people, but also for a project like this, it's, as Rebecca said, started going in and talking to people about something that is not necessarily going to be an action item that's moving forward, can do harm in communities on a lot of levels. And so we're hoping to talk about that primarily around the issues of sort of trust building, and not only sort of like with yourself, but on the larger, the much broader picture, of wanting to know that when people are coming and asking you questions, that your voice is being used for something and not just a waste of your time. I am going to, so I'm gonna start with what we sort of call the engagement essentials. We work here. So every form of community engagement really requires a significant amount of time. It requires a significant amount of time in order to develop an appropriate strategy, right? Like I said, it's not one size fits all. And you have to fostering community relationships, having opportunities for that interim self-reflection, a willingness to change course after that interim self-reflection might show that you need to be doing something different, follow through, and then transparency. These are all really critical to making sure that your engagement strategy is working with folks in the community. So this is very big picture, and I'll sort of touch on some of the reasons why you want to do these things, but also perhaps not necessarily for this project, but when you're moving forward. So like I said, there's 5 big points. The first one is you want to make sure that you always have a clear purpose for what you are going in and asking. I'm a designer. I am incredibly inquisitive. I have lots of questions for all of the people that I meet, and I love getting to know people and finding things out. But asking really detailed questions about something that's not necessarily related to your project is not necessarily going to help your project moving forward. So I think the number one thing you need to think about when you are working with communities is to make sure that you know what you're asking, that you're asking those questions for a specific reason, and that those questions have some sort of set of, they will change what you're doing, if that makes sense. So when you ask a question, you can respond to the responses that you get from that question in the way that you're going to approach, whether it's a design or a plan or a strategy or anything moving forward, and be very transparent about the decision-making process. So, I'm asking these questions, that's going to be reflected in X, Y, and Z. It's important to keep that transparency open. The second part is to really involve and work with community organizations that are in the neighborhood already. We are designers and we are experts in certain things, but we are not necessarily experts in the way that the community discusses things, the issues and the challenges that they're facing, the possible triggers or other things that might come up and might derail a conversation. So when you are developing an engagement strategy, finding whether it's a community organization or a community leader or someone that can speak to the types of conversations that residents in those communities are having, really important to develop a partnership with them up front in order to co-create that engagement strategy with them, right? They might tell you, I've gone to neighborhoods that have said, like, everyone here hates surveys, definitely don't do a survey. Other neighborhoods where that might be the best way to reach the largest group of people. So find those community folks early on that you can partner with to find out what strategies might resonate, what strategies won't resonate, and allow time to build that relationship with them. All right, number 3 is really about, sometimes we call this the throwing the spaghetti at the wall way of engagement, but it's about providing sort of like flexible and genuine. So design is not one size fits all. Engagement is not one size fits all. Different people from the same community might want to interact with you in a different way, right? So providing opportunities for folks to sort of like get in and out, and maybe they just want to observe what you're doing and they don't really want to provide feedback. That's important engagement, right? or they want to sit down and have a long conversation with you about specific aspects of a design. Creating a design or an engagement strategy that allows all these different sort of like ranges of participation and time commitments is really crucial in making sure that you're meeting people where they are, so that they can help you in the way that best fits their schedules and their needs and their priorities. Number 4, and this it's listed as number 4 in these 5, but these are all equally important. Number 4 is really to provide value to participants, right? We want to make sure that any type of engagement strategy is not extractive from that community. And how you define value is going to change from project. Perhaps the simplest way to start looking at value is to pay folks for their time to be there, right? To provide food, to provide childcare, to provide some type of experience that is an educational experience. But you want to make sure that people are leaving the engagement process, whether they just came for a second or they stayed for a long time, and they're leaving feeling as if their voice mattered, they contributed to something, and they are walking away feeling like they've gained something from the engagement. And then last of all is to make it fun, right? I often joke with my partner that I've tried to figure out how I can merge both design and party planning. And sometimes engagement, it's just make it a party, right? If you want to stand on the street and ask people to fill out surveys, you'll get a couple of people that might stop their busy day and do that for you. But if you have a DJ and some food and other events going on, then you'll start to be able to have a lot more people that are coming for the fun, and then happen to also participate in the engagement process. So that's my big overview. I would like to add that you can, if you want to know more about this, there are a ton of resources on our website, which is hingecollective.com, under the Insights page. These are all free to download. There's a few more resources going up in the next couple of weeks. So I sort of reviewed this, but if you want to look at it, I have some case studies in there of when and where these things might work. So please check it out.
You, Alexa. Thank you so much. That was great. Short, sweet, and fun. And I totally got it. So that was great. I also I'm going to turn it over to Nate Hommel, who is our co-chair of the Bacon Committee. He's also the director of planning and design for University City District. So Nate uses his urban design expertise and dedicated enthusiasm to further enhance the urban quality of life issues throughout University of City. He's been instrumental in, here in Philadelphia, launching Green City Works, our UCD's new landscaping social venture, and he serves as a quality and design consultant for all landscape projects that the venture executes. Before joining UCD, Nate worked as a landscape architect and urban designer for 2 firms in Philadelphia, and he served as an adjunct professor of landscape architecture at Philadelphia University, heading the urban design and community design studios. He's also one of the founding members of Open Streets PHL and has served as an external communication director for the organization, and he has been an amazing co-chair of the Bacon Committee for several years. So Nate, it's all you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I'm going to share my screen here to show you our site. And hi all from far and wide. One thing to just build off of what Alexa said, I think it's really important if we all think of ourselves as problem solvers and not people that are experts coming in and dropping something down. The more you think of yourself as a problem solver, the more you're going to be listening to other people's voices, and you're not just coming in with an agenda of I'm so smart, I'm going to do this. Communities don't like that. And when you come in with an inquisitive mind and you're saying, hey, I have some expertise and I want to help you with this and I want to help you solve these problems, it really gives you a better perspective. And so I want to help you understand what are some of these problems here, because again, this might seem counterintuitive. We're asking you not to contact the community, even though we just told you the right ways to do that. But the idea with this is as you enter the real world, or as you continue on with your studies, that you now have a better understanding of how to adequately address the public, how to get feedback from them, and how to incorporate that into your project. So here is our site. It's large. It is in Philadelphia. There's some key things here that I want to point out. But I think you can learn a lot from Google on this, but it's stuff that you really need to have a better understanding of what is around this site and how we go. So let me just pull up my notes. Sorry. So when we look at our site, this is very much in the heart of Philadelphia. This is on the eastern section of our city, but it is very much integrated. You can see the density around this. And so there's a lot of different uses on this site. And I think what we want to point out here, the red boundaries that we have incorporate a lot of different things. You can see a major highway cutting through this. Well, that major highway is a serious source of contention with the community there. The community there felt that that highway came in and just ripped them in half. So it's a real contentious area, but there's no plan to have that removed, but it's something that is very much a barrier to connection within this site. There's a lot of housing around this area, particularly north of where we have that highway. And that's generally what we refer to here in Philadelphia as Chinatown, a neighborhood that's concentrated mostly of people of Asian descent and live together in a collective area, although anybody can live there, for those of you that aren't familiar with the American system of Chinatowns. So the idea is it's a culturally relevant area to those communities, and they would like to be near each other. But there's also some very wonderful things south of this site that are part of it. One being one of the original 4 squares in Philadelphia laid out in our original plan by William Penn. So this is called Franklin Square, named after Ben Franklin. There's a lot of history on this site. Underneath it is a lot of bodies. There's a huge yellow fever plague that we had 150 years ago that did these things. So, I mean, this is a park that has been there forever, but at the same time, it is somewhat disconnected from the community because of some of the infrastructure around it. So just to the east of the site, the park, there is a major thoroughfare. This is 6th Street. So this is any old street like Philadelphia's grid, except this is a major pathway to the Ben Franklin Bridge, one of our significant bridges that connects us to New Jersey, an adjacent state. So there's a lot of traffic on 6th Street. A lot of cars come through. Going on or coming off of that bridge. And in this area is a tiny little park with a wonderful sculpture. It's very hard to get to. There's all of this traffic on 6th Street, all of these people that need to get onto the bridge, but there's a really wonderful sculpture in the center of this, and it commemorates the old kitschy thing where Ben Franklin flew a kite with a key and discovered electricity. You're welcome, world. Philadelphia gave that to you. But we have a little sculpture and it's hard to get to. And so that's another area. But when you get south of this site, things start to change. You have a lot of institutional organizations and historic organizations. So just south and just east of this is Independence Mall, where the Liberty Bell is, where Independence Hall, where America started, all that stuff is right here. And so that's, again, an adjacency that's just south and just east of this site. Nestled in this small area on the southern portion of our site is an area ripe for change. There is a distinctive building that looks like 2 drums connected together. That is the historic home of the Philadelphia Police Department, but that's up for, there's potential new uses coming to that area. They are no longer going to need that for their facility. So that's an open facility. There's also just south of that a museum, African American Museum of Philadelphia, that is just signed a lease in a much larger space in Center City. And so this old location will become available within there. You are not displacing the African American Museum. They already have a wonderful, beautiful new home on the Ben Franklin Parkway. We also have housing in this area that mixed together with modern kind of construction techniques, but also with the community in mind. And so there are several housing towers throughout here. There was just a senior housing tower announced that we will share in the links that will be on this large parking lot in this corner. where they are building affordable housing for seniors. I think that's important. But as we come around this site and we're coming up, again, we're hit with that huge barrier of the highway. There is only one passageway through to get you underneath that. This housing area needs to stay. This is extremely important, but this area could change. So again, we're only asking you to change things where there's nothing there now. There's surface parking. I think one important thing to understand is how do people get to this site? When you're in this site, so we have a mixture of an existing park, we have surface parking lots, we have structures that are needing new uses, we have surrounding community, we have surrounding history, we have major infrastructure around this with highways that we need to kind of work through. So all of those challenges are certainly there, but there's wonderful transit to get you into this. And so this is served 3 different ways, primarily, let me get this correct, in this parking lot is the major transit access. And so there's the Broad Ridge Spur, which is a subway system that we have that has a station in here that connects people north and west. It basically, Philadelphia has 2 subways. This is sort of a third. It's just a trisect, but it comes out and it helps people get in to this area from other parts without having a car. There is an abandoned station for another transit service called PATCO, P-A-T-C-O. Those are the trains that come from New Jersey over into Philadelphia. They come across the Ben Franklin Bridge. There is a station in Franklin Square that was abandoned in the 70s, but it's coming back. And so this is going to be a new way for people from New Jersey to come into this site without using cars. So there's also our tried and true Market Frankford line, the Market Frankford L runs underneath here. The nearest stop is at 8th Street, 8th and Market Street, very close to here. There's also a stop at 5th and Market Street. So 2 very important spots. Again, easy to get here from all parts of the city. There are 4 different bus lines that come through here, all useful. Our buses are kind of the one part of our, during the pandemic, the buses are the thing that stayed the most reliable and the most user-friendly. And so our buses are very useful. You can always see this on SEPTA, S-E-P-T-A, Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority. SEPTA is our transit agency. They have maps, they have schedules. You can learn a lot about these transit options and what changes are coming. So to just kind of finish off this a little bit, there is a thing you might, as you come into the research in this area, you might hear whispers of this new project that's being proposed where the Philadelphia 76ers, our NBA basketball team, wants a new home in Chinatown. That is outside of our project site, but you might see news articles, you might hear about that. It's interesting to hear some of that community feedback if you read some of those, some of that. But anyway, that's just south and west of our site. On the other side of Chinatown. So this is kind of the eastern section of Chinatown. That would be the western side where they're going to have that. So if you hear about that, if you're hearing about the arena and whatever, just keep in mind, this is not regarding our site. That is a nearby site, but it is different. So in between those 2 is dense residential with activated ground floor retail, the typical things that make Chinatown exciting and vibrant. So I hope that gives you a better understanding of where this is. Google Street View is outstanding for this area, so you can really get a good feel for that. Obviously, nothing is better than being there in person, but try to explain where this is in the city of Philadelphia.
Nate, could you just sort of maybe highlight on the map kind of the places outside the site that are considered sort of Chinatown, and in particular, I think the rail yard and where Market Street is on the line too, on the picture?
Sure.
Yeah.
So this would be our area, kind of this specifically is Chinatown proper.
Yeah.
What you're seeing here is the beginnings of our convention center, a very large facility that went right in the heart of Chinatown when they decided to put that there. A lot of problems here with big things coming and just being plopped down on neighborhoods that were fully functioning. It's a big thing with the United States. So we have the Chinatown proper here. Again, this is the highway right here, right at the edge of our site, is where this elevated roadway goes down and it sinks down below the surface. So from here west, it is a trench underneath the city, and there's just a hole. There is a plan for this to be capped in the next, we'll say 20 to 50 years, that would ideally potentially connect Chinatown back together. Chinatown North, this general area, and then sort of Chinatown proper. So that is coming. This is a way to expand it to the east. What's happening up here is what's called the rail park. So there used to be some trains that would come in from the north into Philadelphia. That's been abandoned. We have a High Line, so similar to what you might know about in New York. That's this area. That's kind of the spur, this angled area that you see is that High Line. That's now a public park, and so it's a linear elevated park, again similar to the High Line in New York, where it's an old abandoned train area and became a new public space for the community, and then eventually we'll snake through another mile north of that. But what we have primarily east of this is dense residential. It's an area called Old City. It's a neighborhood. Old City District is a business improvement district that operates in there. And then west of this is Chinatown, and then immediately west of that is City Hall, dead center in Philadelphia. So Market Street is a major street for us. Market and Broad, our subway runs underneath those two streets, and they basically cut our city, our old traditional grid, right, north and south, east and west. So in this, we have Market Street. Let me get my orientation correct. This is Grace Market. So our southern end is Market. Let me just pull up all these names to make sure we don't give you bad information. Bear with me. Yeah, so sorry. If anybody has any questions about some of the site, or if there are any issues of things that aren't clear, please let me know.
Yes.
I think that would be helpful, because we can explain things maybe a little bit differently based on that. And I'll pause for a moment while people gather their thoughts.
Yeah, so there's a first question from Hazel in the chat. Is the train station that is currently under construction in Franklin Square, what's the construction in Franklin Square? The PATCO line that you referenced. Do you know that, Nate? I don't know that.
I don't know that project has started.
Yeah, I don't think
as of yet. It is in the works and they want it to get going, but I don't think that construction has started.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, Hazel, what that construction is in Franklin Square at the moment.
Franklin Square is often fenced off for various events, and it's possible you're thinking a private event was construction coming, but
Marcus's question is, for community engagement, is there ever issues aligning multiple community organizations? Go ahead, Alexa. Yeah.
I can answer that with a really unsatisfactory. It depends. There's I feel like a lot of community folks have personalities, and I think that there's sort of there's a general belief that like different community organizations are competing to do similar things. I haven't necessarily found that to always be the case. There are definitely personalities that once you start developing a relationship with someone in the neighborhood, they might highlight that for you, saying like these two folks, might have differing opinions. But I always say get as many of those people into the room as you possibly can, and you'll find that they probably have very similar goals, and that they can work on that together. So I think the more folks you can get into the room in order to find the ways that their missions are aligning and their sort of community goals are aligning, the more powerful your project will become, because you're not sort of aligning with one versus the other. And I also, there are very few community organizations that can claim that they represent all the thoughts in one particular neighborhood. So more the merrier is my general approach.
Yeah, I think, and one of the things I wanted to do was sort of highlight, and then we'll get through the rest of the questions, the particular to the site and the competition, but I think there are some issues that folks might have different takes on or different approaches about how to solve that issue. But I think, you know, it feels to me like parking and affordability are always issues. People have different strategies about what that means, you know. This is a really dense area. There's lots of transit. It is absolutely, from a planning perspective, not where you would want like parking minimums for per unit, right? You want to encourage a walkable, pedestrian friendly community. And so, but parking is an issue. I mean, especially, you know, for folks that have long time been able to park near their home, right? Or nearby and pull their truck up to unload for their business. There's not a lot of great alleys in Chinatown. So a lot of sort of like the delivery issue in Chinatown of all the businesses, because it's such a dense commercial district, it's a thing. It becomes like a tension for like walking down the street and having like trucks unloading, you know, stuff at the same time. I think I'm glad I asked Nate to point out the rail park, because I think larger context around affordability in this area is that when the rail park went in, you know, housing markets, housing prices rose significantly. And the sort of a study that was done in 2020 attributed, and this is in one of the resources, is a WHYY article. You know, they attributed the rail park, like about 16% of that, the rise in prices was from the rail park, you know. And so there's a sense, I think, around affordability, but also about preservation of culture, right? It's what happens to Chinatown if the prices keep rising and new people move in and don't reflect the culture of the community, or are pushing longtime community members out because of prices. I think that's an important piece. The other thing that I would really encourage folks to sort of look through, and to Alexa's point about there's not one organization that pulls everybody together, but the Philadelphia Chinatown Corporation did a pretty robust report called the Chinatown Future Histories. And in there is a link, right, on their website, if you go to their website, of a conversation of all the community members talking from different perspectives talking. So it's one of the reasons why we didn't want to like recreate that, because they just did it like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So definitely check out that YouTube. And I'll actually drop it in the chat right now, because I had pulled it up right here, right? So this is what it, oh, I'm not sharing my screen, which is fine, but I will drop it. This is the YouTube that is on the Chinatown's website, Chinatown PCPC website around the Future Histories Project. So I really encourage folks to look at that. I also want to talk about something that is happening that we recently sort of supported, which is that trench of Vine Street Expressway that Nate pointed out here, where this huge highway sinks under. There's a lot of political will at this moment to apply for grants to come up with a phased approach to cover it and try to heal some of the wounds, if you will, of that this highway sort of cut the neighborhood in half. So that is something that, you know, we're hopeful and is a possibility in the future. It's a huge infrastructure project to cover that sunken Vine Street Expressway. So there's some great articles in there in the resources in the competition brief. And then lastly, I'll just say, because I think our planning director, executive director of the Planning Commission, Eleanor Sharp, you know, this is Ed Bacon's old job. So I feel like it's nice to sort of end on this, is that the old police station is referred to as the Roundhouse. And so she talks about how it's a really complicated site. To many people, it represents an era of police brutality, but for some that era really continues to this day. At the same time, it is an iconic piece of architecture, right? It sits on a large and valuable parcel, and it's an opportunity to secure revenue to support education, social services, public safety, and critical needs. This site has meaning to Philadelphians of all races, ethnicities, ages, genders, sexual orientations, gender identity, and incomes. And it means different things to a lot of different people. So it is an emotionally charged kind of site that needs a new purpose. So there is a community engagement process, and there's lots of great articles and sort of, I think that's just another perspective too. All right. So I want to,
I'm sorry, I just wanted
Yeah.
to piggyback on what you were saying, Rebecca, about the resources that are in there. There have been a lot of great conversations in this neighborhood that have happened, that are sharing a lot of these perspectives, and you can gain a lot of information about those sort of perceptions of the place and the site from the resources that are provided as part of this. And Chinatown CDC has really been doing an excellent job really holding that space for those conversations. So definitely look at those and consider those, and think about them as if you were a part of that engagement process, and getting that feedback, because I think a lot of the things that are said in there will definitely impact your design strategies.
great. All right. So let's move on to questions. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. So the next question is, do we consider the 76 stadium will be constructed? Should our designs reflect how the neighborhood would change if that happens, and try to accommodate that change?
I think that is your call.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a guaranteed thing to happen. The
Yep.
interesting part about it is they are going to finance this themselves, so they would not need any government money. So it's possible that just factor that in. I think it's either, it could go pretty much either way right now. It may or it may not happen. There's plenty of people excited. There's plenty of people upset.
This is not the first time a stadium has been proposed in Chinatown, and last time Chinatown defeated it. But I think the Philly Stadium, right, needed some needed government money, and that's a way in order to have it happen. So the next question is asking for visions of places a little outside the site. In terms of imagery, I really would rely on Google Maps for this. I don't know if we have them all. I don't want to take the time now to kind of go through that. But I feel like that's probably the best, to sort of get yourself go down Race Street and go through Chinatown's kind of main corridors, and 10th and 11th as well. With the understanding that 676 will stay with small portions being capped, can we consider rerouting some of the ramps? Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Considering
another thing to consider with this is what our highways are about at their usable life. And so this is a portion of highway that is needing to be rethought in the future. So those are very, very viable ideas.
Yeah, for sure. How about the historical preservation status of Franklin Square? Can we change it?
That is a curious question. The organization that runs that is really good at getting and finding loopholes and getting around those types of things. I think Franklin Square is untouchable except for the edges and how people access that site. So the square itself, think of that as a done, finished deal, but getting to that is completely in your purview to make adjustments to.
Yeah.
Right, and to like Noguchi Plaza, that's sort of the
inaccessible,
also completely inaccessible.
Yeah. Can we change the traffic flow for a few streets as part of the design to make streets more pedestrian friendly? Yes. Yes. Can the plan include proposals or general visions to places outside the competition site? Yes, I think the context is always important, for sure. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, the deadline for questions is December 15th. The deadline for the competition is January 31st, submissions. As well as we will, and March 2nd, actually, everyone, March 2nd is the date of the award ceremony in Philadelphia. We will be announcing the professional sort of urban design award speaker who speaks after the finalists present their projects. So we're really excited. If you have any questions, you can reach us, and yeah, go ahead, Alexa.
There's another question that just came in
Sure.
about water reservoirs, if there are any under there. If you guys are not aware of it, and I'm sorry, Rebecca, I don't remember if we included this in the resources, but the Philadelphia Water Department has what they call the Big Green Map. you can just Google Big Green Map, Philadelphia Water Department, and they have an interactive map where you can see all of the sort of green stormwater infrastructure that they have, whether that's underground basins or planned projects as well. So I think seeing if there are anything under those, that might be a good place to start.
It's a great question. Yeah. Hi from Leeds. Hi Leeds. How you doing? What do you consider as elements of the near goal and long-term vision in the brief? I feel like that's really, we kind of let the students usually decide based on what you're proposing, what would be sort of short-term and long-term. I think there's a goal long-term to preserve the sort of culture of Chinatown. I think that any project that doesn't do that, I wouldn't feel is, I don't believe the jury will find that successful. I think that other than that, I think like changing traffic and covering things and building a stadium, not building a stadium, I think all of those things are like up for grabs. But I think the sort of, the title of this competition or the prompt here, I have the brief right here, is designing for an equitable future in Chinatown. I think that's the sort of long-term goal, that whatever happens is sort of respecting the legacy and the importance, not only to the residents, but to the larger community across the region that this place has culturally and sort of, economically, all the things, but culturally most important. I think that's right. You have anything to add to that, Nate?
That's great.
Yeah. All right, this is good. I'm glad it wasn't, I mean, I really enjoyed the conversation, but I'm also glad that it's 40 minutes because that means more people will actually watch the recording instead of if it was an hour and a half, right? So thank you all for your time. Again, please reach out. We have a couple of weeks where we are still open to answering your questions. So if anything comes to mind, please reach out. All right. Take care.
Have
Everyone.
fun.
Have a great day. Have fun.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.